You turn my morning into dancing. Your love changes everything. There's something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes every. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love, something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love, something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything, changes everything. Something about your love, something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into
Rooted Men, good morning. Pastor Tom, Firmly Rooted Ministries. We're here at the office on this Ash Wednesday and Valentine's Day, showing off the new Live Generously shirt from Thrivent. I did my action team. I actually did 2 action teams coming up, so that's about $500 for Firmly Rooted. And snabbed a few T-shirts out of the box. We're going to have some of those available. We're looking to try to put the Firmly Rooted logo on the back. And so we'll see how we do. Let's see. Let's start with I'm on board. Good morning, Rooted Men. Have a blessed Ash Wednesday and Valentine's Day. I'm so proud of how many guys are popping on this week in the last couple of weeks. It's been really great. Ken Gooch, good morning, fellow brothers in arms. Chuck, good morning. Chris, good morning. Greg Ray, good morning, men. Bert Reggiani, good morning. Brian, good morning. Plus, we have about 3 more out there. We've got a couple on X. So we're doing good. We're live in all the right places. All right, let's do the devotion, and I'll come back and talk about Ash Wednesday for a second. I'm going to pull this up and remind you of what ended yesterday. And this man that was deaf and mute, so he couldn't speak and he couldn't hear, right? Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. He spit on the man's tongue. He looked up at heaven with a deep sigh and said, Ephatha. Ephatha. It's a PF there, Ephatha. And it means be opened. At this moment, the man's ears were open, his tongue was loose, and he began to speak. And I just want you to see the reaction. 37. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. So the public conclusion about Jesus is this is some amazing man. He's a gift from God. He's doing things that no prophet, no teacher has ever been able to do. And he is utterly astounding and utterly amazing. Well, we go into the verses for today, and Jesus is going to feed the 4,000. It's a common story that we all know, so I may not focus on it so much, but I want to focus at the last verses where the Pharisees respond. So let me read through it with you. During those days, another large crowd gathered, and the crowds are getting bigger and bigger, right? He's fed 4,000, 5,000. He has been teaching from the hillsides, teaching from the banks of the water, and people would hear him. I mean, his crowds are getting larger and larger. During those days, another large crowd gathered. Since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him. I have compassion for these men. Highlight, circle, think about compassion. We sometimes judge God to be cold, calculating, and deliberate when he is kind and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. How important it is that we have the right perspective of God. If we do not have the right perspective of God, we will have a twisted theology and a twisted Christianity that we're living out in our lives. I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way because some of them have come a long distance. His disciples said, where in this remote place can we get enough food for them? Like, we're in a remote area up in the hillside. And he says, how many loaves do you have? Now, you and I both know that they know, and even Jesus knows, they don't have enough. Like, they're not carrying with them enough loaves of bread or fish to feed 4,000 people, men, not counting the women and children. But they look in the bags and they say to Jesus, we have 7. He then tells them to have the crowd sit down. What's he going to do? We only have 7. There's not enough. I just want to stop there for a second and say, how many times in my life or in your life, even when we're trying to trust God, we're saying, but there's not enough. I don't have enough love reciprocating. I don't have enough money to meet all the bills. I don't have enough time to get everything done. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. See, this world can eat up every second of every day and still leave us as exhausted and tired. But I want you to realize that the disciples know this isn't enough. But in Jesus' hands, things change. Like deaf people can hear and blind people can see and mute people can speak. So I guess the exercise is, gentlemen, for you and I today, what do we need today, even on this Ash Wednesday, to think about putting in his hands and stop keeping them in our hands? What do you have to let go of? What are you holding on to, thinking that God can't supply the need, so you're trying to supply it yourself, but it's still not enough? Do we have enough evidence that if we put something in Jesus' hands, he can multiply it? Yes. So during this penitential season, Lenten season prior to Easter, maybe one of the things that we can do is introspectively figure out what we need to let go of and what we're holding on to, and where we're crying out there's not enough. He said he had the disciples distribute to the people, and they did. They also had some small fish, and he gave them Jesus. Jesus gave them to the disciples and distributed them. The people ate and were satisfied. Afterwards, the disciples picked up 7 baskets of broken pieces that were left over. So again, Jesus never gives just enough. He not only miraculously feeds 4,000 men, not including the women and children, but there's leftovers. God always gives more. In the desert in Egypt, I mean, when they came out of Egypt in the desert, there was always quail on the ground that they didn't eat. And there was always manna on the ground they didn't eat, because God put down there enough. He didn't just put down enough. God is an abundant God, giving more than enough. So about 4,000 people were fed. Jesus gets into a boat with his disciples and went to the region of Dalmanutha. So he's traveling along the Sea of Galilee. The Pharisees came and began to question Jesus. The Pharisees, to test him. They asked him for a sign from heaven. What? He just fed 4,000 men, not including women and children. He just healed a mute man and a deaf man. He just healed a Syrophoenician woman who was demon possessed, and the child wasn't even with him. It was like miles away. You see, they don't want to come under Jesus. They want Jesus to come under them. We're going to demand some type of a sign from you because we're the leaders. Rather than bowing down to Jesus and falling at his feet, they're arrogantly testing Jesus and telling him that you owe us. You can't just go around doing this ministry. We're in charge. We're in charge. Jesus sighed deeply. Why does this generation ask for a sign? Truly, I tell you, no sign will be given to it. Other gospels say, except for the sign of Jonah, this prophet that was not just reluctant, but was disobedient, argued with God, wished that he would die because he couldn't stand that God was being gracious. So when he says, I'm giving you the sign of Jonah, he's accusing them of being like Jonah. Yes, he's talking about the fact that he was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and Jesus was in the grave for 3 days, but don't miss the point. When he says Jonah, he means the whole story of Jonah. That the Pharisees refuse to see God's grace being exuding, coming out of Jesus every single day. All they see is he's not following their parameters. Then they left him. Then he left them, got back into the boat, and crossed to the other side. All right. So, gentlemen, this is Valentine's Day. And if you're married or have a better half, don't screw it up. Um, secondly, it's Ash Wednesday. And we are going to have our traditional Ash Wednesday service. We are going to combine ashes and oil. We've been doing oil for the last 5, 6, 7 years. I'm going to reintroduce ashes and try to explain the meaning and what it's all about and what it's for. Would encourage you to be coming, bring your family, invite someone who just might wonder why we Christians have an Ash Wednesday and why we go through this season of Lent. But just in short, gentlemen, it's no different than what we do Monday through Friday every day. Just together trying to be introspective and trying to be honest with ourselves, about ourselves. Trying to die to the old and rise to the new, trying to, on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, work on our roots and snip ones that are in the wrong kingdom and put them into his kingdom and begin to perfect that and work that and make it happen and then do it again and again. And the process is we grow. We grow closer to God. We grow closer together. We end up serving God in his kingdom. Why? Because we're just putting everything in the right place. The order of things are being righted. All right. I'll leave you at that. Again, guys, great to have you on board. I love you. Appreciate you. You guys are an inspiration to me. You keep me going. So thank you for that encouragement. Let's today get ready for Ash Wednesday and let's get ready for that service. Let's not have it be just a ritual that we do on Ash Wednesday and put a little ash on our heads. Let's take in deeply the meaning of all of it. All right. That's what I have for you. I will say to you, blessings on your day. Make it a firmly rooted day, and may someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.